Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a disturbing nature.
And we're not going to hold back on the graphic details and disturbing content.
So we do not recommend our podcast for children under the age of 13.
And while we respect the victims and their families involved in these tragic cases,
we're also going to be critical of mistakes that are made during the investigations.
And we're going to use dark humor to express ourselves now and then.
So with that said, this podcast may not be for everyone.
And that's okay. We're glad you're here checking us out.
And if you've made it this far, welcome to the Unsung Murder Ballads family. And follow us on Instagram at Unsung Murder Ballads if you want to talk to us.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Unsung Murder Ballads. This is episode 121. I am Janice Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
All right, tonight we are here for our next For Joyous Information episode.
So, yeah.
Woohoo! Inform me.
Well, first we have to have you guess what you think this person is famous for.
Ooh, I love this part. Okay, who are we talking about?
Today we are talking about Richard Ramirez, aka the Nightstalker.
So I don't think I've heard of this one. Although, like, Nightstalker, I hate to say that's a little obvious. I'm gonna assume he stalks people at night, and then he kills them.
Right? It's kind of like
my guess.
It's kind of like if I said the Boston Strangler. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like I'm guessing that he strangles people in Boston. Yes.
So, do you want to take a guess at the time period, or?
Ooh, sure.
It's tough with a name like that.
Nightstalker, the vibes, it's giving me 80s.
Okay, fair.
Because it feels kind of like serial killer movie-y to me.
And you know what? There are many serial killer movies that have stolen from what he's done. Yes.
Yes. So actually, you know what? I revised I feel like in the 80s they would have made a movie about it, which means that this happened probably in 60s or 70s.
Okay. So I will tell you that you were partially right. You were initially right with the 80s. That's where most of his stuff happens. He's called the Night Stalker because he enters people's homes at night. So that's the big part of it. But we're going to dive into it now. There isn't much of a teaser because this is an FJI. So, but I am going to tell you in terms of a teaser, there are 3 moments in this story that if you had seen it in a movie, you would have been like, this is such bullshit.
Wow.
But here we are, and this really happened. And
truth is stranger than fiction.
It's amazing. And that's why I don't have a teaser, because like the one we did in Iceland, by using one of those moments as the teaser, it would have just ruined their effect later. So we're just going to roll into it.
All right, let's rock.
All right. So Ricardo Leyva Munoz Ramirez, or Richard Ramirez, was born in El Paso, Texas, on February 29th, 1960, to Mexican immigrants Mercedes and Julian Ramirez. He was the youngest of 5 children. Now, his father was a railway laborer and an alcoholic who was prone to fits of anger, which often resulted in physical abuse towards his wife and children.
As old as time.
I was going to say, we hear that practically every week.
Mm-hmm.
Way too often.
Now, Ramirez was brought up a Catholic and began smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol at the age of 10.
Holy
wow,
hell.
It's a famously Catholic thing to do.
Right? I mean, come on. We all did it, right? It's like,
yeah.
It's like part of catechism, isn't it?
I would not know, but we're smoking pot with the Lord.
I grew up Catholic, and that's what we did. It's what it is. So psychiatrist Michael Stone later described Ramirez as a made psychopath as opposed to a born psychopath.
Wow.
He says that Ramirez's schizoid personality disorder contributed to his indifference to the suffering of his victims and his untreatability. Stone also stated that Ramirez was knocked unconscious and almost died on multiple occasions before he was 6 years old.
Oof. So we're talking about brain damage.
Correct. And as a result, he later developed temporal lobe epilepsy, became more aggressive, and developed hypersexuality.
Oof.
At the age of 12, Ramirez was taken under the wing of his older cousin, Miguel Angel Mike Valles, an army soldier who himself had already become something of a serial killer and rapist during his time in the Vietnam War.
Fuck. Well, I mean, that isn't that what being in the war is? Being a serial killer?
So if you, again, this is the very, very thin distinction. If you are using a government-issued weapon to kill the enemies of your government, that or who they say they are your enemies, then it's not murder. But if you're killing someone who's not an enemy combatant, then you are a murderer.
Fascinating.
So, now, Vietnam in particular was horrible for this. So Valles often boasted of committing gruesome war crimes in Vietnam, and he would show Polaroid photos to Ramirez that displayed Vietnamese women who had been raped, murdered, and dismembered or decapitated.
Oh,
yeah.
Awful.
It is alleged that many of these photos depicted women being tied to trees or wooden posts both before and after they were sexually assaulted and killed by Valles.
Oh, boy.
Awful and heartbreaking, and this isn't even the person we're talking about.
No, this is one of his influences.
God.
Ramirez would later state while incarcerated that he was fascinated rather than repulsed by those images and stories that Valles shared with him.
Oof.
Oof. Yeah, bad sign.
Valles also taught his young cousin, Ramirez, some of his military skills, including stealth and kill tactics. So around this time, Ramirez began to seek an escape from his father's violent temper, and he would sleep in local cemeteries. When his father learned of this, he would tie Ramirez to a crucifix in the cemetery overnight as punishment.
What the fuck?
Oh, that's just twisted as hell.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
This is why that doctor says he's a made psychopath versus
100%.
Yeah, just proving it there.
So shortly after that, Ramirez turned 14 in 1974, and he began to use LSD frequently. He and Valles resumed their bonding over their shared use of drug use and alcohol. It was during this time that Ramirez began to cultivate an interest in Satanism and the occult. When he reached adolescence, Ramirez began to meld his burgeoning sexual fantasies with graphic violence, including forced bondage, murder, mutilation, and rape.
Ugh.
That's a lovely combination.
While in school, he took a job at a local Holiday Inn, and he used the master key that was given to him to rob sleeping patrons.
Fuck. Great start.
Right? I mean, come on, you look at where he's coming from and the people influence him. This blows my mind.
This probably seems mild to him as he's doing it.
And comparatively, it is mild for him.
Yeah.
On at least one occasion, Ramirez molested 2 children in the elevator at the hotel, but he was never reported or prosecuted for this act.
How do we know? Did he confess to it?
Yes, he like many serial killers, was very open about what he did.
Right, probably bragged about it.
Now, his employment ended abruptly after Ramirez attempted to rape a woman in her hotel room, but was caught in the act by her husband.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, God.
Although the husband beat Ramirez at the scene, criminal charges were dropped because the couple, who lived out of state, didn't want to return to Texas to testify against him.
Fuck.
At the age of 15, Ramirez was present on May 4th, 1975, when his cousin, Mike Valles, fatally shot his 26-year-old wife, Jessie, in the face with a handgun during a domestic argument.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Some fucked up people.
So, like the graphic photos and stories that his cousin told him of his war crimes in Vietnam, Ramirez would later similarly remark that witnessing the murder was not traumatic for him in any traditional sense, but rather a fascination.
Fuck.
Yeah.
This kid's so fucked.
Not okay.
Now, Valles would later be found not guilty of Jesse's murder by reason of
insanity.
God fucking damn it.
Yep. They attributed the shooting to his post-traumatic stress disorder from his time in the military. So he goes,
and put him away, though,
weak.
right?
They put him in a hospital. After the shooting, Ramirez dropped out of high school in the 9th grade shortly before the year ended in 1975, and he started to become more sullen and withdrawn from his family and peers. Soon after, he moved in with his older sister Ruth and her husband Roberto, who, if you can fucking believe this, was an obsessive peeping Tom who took Ramirez along with him for his nocturnal exploits.
Oh my
dear
fucking God. The influences on this guy's life. What the fuck?
Well, then, after his cousin Mike Valles is released from the mental hospital in 1975, just 2 years after killing his wife, yep, he joined the two on these voyeuristic walks while they spied on women through their windows.
Oh my God.
So in 1982, at the age of 22, Ramirez moved to and settled permanently in California. It was around this time that he began to use cocaine, which quickly became his substance of choice, and he began to commit theft and burglaries to procure more money for sustaining his addiction.
Oof.
He lived nomadically between San Francisco and Los Angeles County during this time, all the way up until his incarceration. On April 10th, 1984, Richard Ramirez murdered Mai Luen, a 9-year-old Chinese-American girl.
Oh.
She was with her 8-year-old brother, and they were looking for a lost $1 bill. And Ramirez saw them and approached the girl and told her that he would help her find this dollar and led her down into a basement. Once in that basement, Ramirez beat, strangled, and raped Luen before stabbing.
Oh my God, a 9-year-old. Jesus Christ.
Before stabbing her to death with a switchblade and then hanging her partially nude body from a pipe by her own blouse.
Okay.
Repulsive.
That's just...
Ugh. Woof.
Now, this killing...
All right, now I see why this is such a famous case.
Yeah, this is fucked up, and this is just the first. So, this killing was not linked to Ramirez until 2009, when DNA samples at when DNA samples at the crime scene were eventually matched to Richard Ramirez. So, crazy. Now, a quick flash forward side note. In 2016, officials disclosed evidence of a second suspect identified through a different DNA sample that was also found at the scene. They believed there was a second person present during this girl's murder. They have
awful. I wouldn't be surprised if it's his family.
I was going to say it's probably one of the other two, but authorities have not publicly identified this suspect, who was described as being a juvenile at the time, and they haven't brought charges against anyone due to lack of concrete evidence. So, yeah, crazy. But back in June 28th, 1984, 79-year-old Jenny Viscow was found murdered in her apartment in Glassell Park, Los Angeles.
What?
Yeah, so from 9 to 79.
He's got a wide demographic there.
She had been stabbed repeatedly in the head, neck, and chest while she was asleep in her bed, and her throat was slashed so deeply that she was nearly decapitated.
Oh, God.
Ramirez's fingerprint was found on the mesh screen he removed to gain access through an open window.
You can get a fingerprint on a mesh screen? I guess on the edge of it.
On the edge of it, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Now, this is his second known murder, and this establishes his pattern of breaking into homes, committing particularly vicious murders, and frequently burglarizing his victims either before or killing them, which was mainly done to support his drug habits. 9 months later, on March 17th, 1985, Ramirez attacked 22-year-old Maria Hernandez outside her home in Rosemead. He shot her in the face with a .22 caliber handgun after she pulled into her garage.
Oh, fuck. It's just like random, indiscriminate violence.
Exactly. She literally gets out of her car and is probably about to close her garage door when he shoots her in the face.
Oh.
Now, she survived because
shit.
She threw her hand up and the bullet ricocheted off her keys that she was holding in her hand.
What?
And then she laid there and played dead until he left.
Smart.
However, inside the house, her roommate, 34-year-old Dale Yoshi Akazaki, heard the gunshot, and she ducked down behind the kitchen counter when she saw Ramirez enter the kitchen. After waiting and hearing nothing, she raised her head to get a look at what was going on, and Ramirez was waiting for her to stick her head up. He shot her in the forehead, killing her instantly.
Oh.
Within an hour of the Rosemead attack, Ramirez pulled 30-year-old Cylian Veronica Yu out of her car in Monterey Park and shot her twice with a .22 caliber handgun and fled.
Holy streak now.
She was pronounced dead upon arriving at the hospital. So 2 murders and an attempted third murder in a single day attracted extensive coverage from the news. And they described the assailant as having curly hair with bulging eyes with a wide space between his rotting teeth. That's how he was described.
Wow.
That's a hell of a description.
They initially called him the walk-in killer or the Valley Intruder, based on which news source you got this from.
Man, I hate that they just keep giving him nicknames. We
I
need to not do that.
Yeah, I agree, but how else do you distinguish them back then from all the other killers that were out there?
Right, I guess you're right.
So 1 week later, at approximately 2 a.m. on March 27th, 1985, Ramirez entered a home that he had burglarized a year earlier, just outside of Whittier, and he killed 64-year-old Vincent Charles Zazzara in his sleep with a gunshot to the head. Now, Zazzara's wife, 44-year-old Maxine, was awoken by the gunshot. Ramirez beat her and bound her hands while demanding to know where her valuables were. He then ransacked the room, and while he was doing so, Maxine managed to get out of her bonds and retrieved a shotgun from under her bed.
Oh.
But she didn't know that it wasn't loaded.
Oh, figures.
No.
So as he realizes she's up, he turns around and she pulls the trigger. But of course, it doesn't fire. So incredibly infuriated, Ramirez shot her 3 times with the handgun, killing her. And then he fetched a large carving knife from the kitchen. He used the knife.
Oh no!
He used the knife to mutilate her body, and he cut an inverted cross into her chest. Then he removed her eyes and placed them into a jewelry box.
Oh, what the fuck?
He then attempted to have sex with her body, but found that he was so shaken from her nearly killing him that he was unable to, do anything about that.
Ew.
He then took the jewelry box containing her eyes and kept it as a souvenir in his apartment until his arrest.
Ugh. Gross.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's...
Personally, I don't know how eyes on their own would, decompose or whatever, but I don't think that's a smell or a goo that I would want anywhere near my house.
No, not at all.
Definitely not.
No.
But you're also not
I'm not a
a
psychopath.
serial killer.
Right.
Yeah.
So Ramirez did, however, leave footprints from his Avia sneakers in the flower bed, which police were able to photograph and make a cast of. Side note, put that in your back pocket. Bullets found at the scene were matched to those found at previous attacks, and the police finally determined that they had a serial killer at large.
Finally.
It only took them that long.
Yeah, how many victims?
Right, like how many deaths before we call it a serial killer?
On May 14th, 1985, Ramirez returned to Monterey Park and entered the home of 66-year-old Bill Doy and his disabled wife, 56-year-old Lillian. Surprising Bill in the bedroom, Ramirez shot him in the face with a .22 automatic pistol as Bill was going for his own handgun. After beating the mortally wounded man into unconsciousness, Ramirez then went after Lillian. He bound her with thumb cuffs. Then he raped her and ransacked the home for valuables.
Oh.
And Bill would later die of his injuries while at the hospital. But Lillian survived.
It's rare that he's leaving a survivor.
It's going to become less rare, and that's an interesting twist in this.
Oh.
So 2 weeks later, On May 29th, Ramirez drove a stolen car to Monrovia, and he stopped at the house of Mabel Ma Bell, aged 83, and her disabled sister, 81-year-old Florence Nettie Lang. Finding a hammer in their kitchen, he bludgeoned and bound Nettie in her bedroom, then bound and bludgeoned Mabel before using an electrical cord to shock her.
Ooh.
After raping Nettie, he used Mabel's lipstick to draw the satanic pentagram symbol on her thigh as well as on the walls of both bedrooms.
Oh, God.
The women were found 2 days later, alive but comatose and critically injured. Mabel died in the hospital of her injuries on July 15th, and Nettie died that following August. The day after his attack on them, Ramirez drove the same car to Burbank and snuck into the home of 42-year-old Carol Kyle. At gunpoint, he bound Carol and her 11-year-old son with handcuffs before ransacking the house. He then released Carol so that she could direct him to where the family's valuables were being kept, and then he raped her repeatedly.
Oh.
Ramirez also repeatedly ordered her not to look at him, telling her at one point that he would cut her eyes out if she did. He then fled the scene after retrieving her son from the closet and binding the two of them back together with handcuffs, and amazingly leaving them both alive.
Oh my God.
Crazy.
Yeah. This man's like bold and like, I don't know, it's starting to sound kind of stupid.
He's also very high on cocaine.
Right. He's moving on to the next thing very quickly.
Yes. On the night of July 2nd, 1985, Ramirez drove a stolen car to Arcadia and randomly selected the house of 75-year-old Mary Louise Cannon, a widowed grandmother. After quietly entering her home, he found her asleep in her bedroom. He bludgeoned her into unconsciousness with a lamp and then stabbed her to death using a 10-inch butcher's knife from her own kitchen.
Oh, my God.
Ramirez repeatedly stabbed Mary's body after she was already dead. 3 nights later, he broke into the home of Sierra Madre and bludgeoned 16-year-old Whitney Bennett with a tire iron as she slept in her bedroom. After searching in vain for a kitchen knife, Ramirez tried to strangle her with a telephone cord. He stated that as he was doing this, he was startled to see electrical sparks emanating from the cord. And when the victim suddenly began to breathe again, he fled the house, believing that Jesus Christ had intervened to save her.
What the hell?
What?
Yup.
That's crazy.
Whitney survived the attack, although it took 478 stitches to close the lacerations to her scalp.
Oh.
Yeah, that's how many times and how hard he hit her with a tire iron.
Holy fuck.
On July 7th, Ramirez burglarized the home of 60-year-old Joyce Lucille Nelson in Monterey Park. Finding her asleep in her living room, he beat her to death by stomping on her face repeatedly.
What the fuck?
Holy shit.
He stomped so hard that he left a shoe print from his Avia sneaker on her face.
Ooh.
Oh.
After cruising...
What the fuck?
Right?
He's doing things that I wouldn't even imagine were possible.
It's crazy. And this is why these cases are so famous, because they're just so far out there.
So crazy.
After cruising around 2 other neighborhoods, he returned to Monterey Park and chose the home of Sophie Dickman, age 63. Ramirez assaulted and handcuffed Sophie at gunpoint. He attempted to rape her, and he stole her jewelry. When she swore to him that he had taken everything she had of value, he told her to swear on Satan.
Ooh.
After she did so, he allowed her to live, and he left. Now, the funny thing we joke around sometimes about how the 80s were ridiculous with satanic panic. It's because of fuckers like this.
Right, well, it makes sense why they would have that.
Right. So 2 weeks later, on July 20th, Ramirez purchased a machete before driving a stolen Toyota to Glendale. Keep in mind, these are all areas around Los Angeles for the most part. He chose the home of 66-year-old Layla Needing and her husband, 68-year-old Maxon. He burst into the sleeping couple's bedroom and hacked them with the machete. He then
both at the same time? This
yeah.
guy is fucking nuts.
Yeah. And then he killed both of them by shooting him in the head with a .22 caliber handgun.
So wait, the machete didn't take them out?
No, he just fucking mutilated them.
Oh my God.
But then he went further and continued to mutilate their bodies with the machete before robbing the house of their valuables. After he sold off these items, Ramirez drove to Sun Valley and broke into the home of the Kovnathan family. He shot Chainarong in the head with a .22 caliber gun, killing him instantly, and then he repeatedly raped and beat 32-year-old Somkid.
Oh.
He bound the couple's 8-year-old son before dragging Somkid around the house to reveal the locations of all their valuables, which he stole. And during all this, he kept demanding that Somkid swear to Satan that she was not hiding any more money from him. On August 6, 1985, Ramirez drove to Northridge and broke into the home of 30-year-old Chris and 27-year-old Virginia Peterson. He crept into the bedroom, startling Virginia, and he shot her in the face with a .25 caliber semi-automatic handgun. Now, I'm assuming he's stealing these guns from his victims.
Yeah, because there's just so many different ones.
He then shot Chris in the neck and attempted to flee, but Chris fought back.
Let's go.
And even though Ramirez shot at him 2 more times, he missed Chris. And they just kept struggling until finally Ramirez managed to escape, but the couple both survived their injuries.
What? I can't believe people are surviving getting shot in the face.
So 2 nights later, Ramirez drove a stolen car to Diamond Bar, and he chose the house of Sakina Abawath, age 27, and her husband, 31-year-old Elias. Sometime after 2:30 a.m., he entered the house and went into the master bedroom. He instantly killed the sleeping Elias with a shot to the head from a .25 caliber gun. He then handcuffed and beat Sakina while forcing her to reveal the location of the family's jewelry, and then he brutally raped her. He repeatedly demanded that she swear on Satan that she would not scream during his assaults. When the couple's 3-year-old son woke up and entered the bedroom,
No.
Ramirez tied the child up and continued to rape Sakina.
Oh, God.
He then left the house, and Sakina managed to untie her son and had him run to the neighbor's house for help.
Oh.
So Ramirez was closely following the news coverage of all his crimes, as a lot of these narcissistic killers do. But at this point, he decided to leave Los Angeles, and he went up to San Francisco. So on August 18th, he entered the home of 66-year-old, and I am not kidding, this guy's name is Peter Pan.
Wow.
What?
Yep. Peter Pan and his 62-year-old wife, Barbara. Ramirez shot the sleeping Peter in the temple with a .25 caliber gun, killing him instantly. He then beat and sexually assaulted Barbara before shooting her in the head and leaving her for dead.
Cool.
At the scene, Ramirez used lipstick to scrawl a pentagram and the phrase "Jack the Knife" on the bedroom wall. And,
Jack the Knife?
Yeah, Jack the Knife. It's a song, I believe, from a musical.
Oh.
I think it was called Mac the Knife, I think, in the musical. So he's just being weird.
Okay.
And it may also be a reference to Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So this is the first of the "if this happened in a movie, I wouldn't believe it" moments. Ramirez left behind a shoe print at the scene. Detectives were able to match the print to a specific pair of Avia shoes that were not common at this period in time. Lead detectives Frank Salerno and Gil Carrillo contacted the manufacturer of the shoes and were able to retrieve the soles. Upon the discovery of the make and distribution of this shoe across the United States, they realized that there were only 6 that existed in men's size 11 and a half.
Whoa, a real exclusive shoe.
5 of these 6 shoes were shipped to Arizona and only 1 pair to Los Angeles.
Whoa.
What are the fucking odds?
Holy
That's
shit.
insane.
This is what I mean. If I saw that in a movie, I'd have been throwing my popcorn at the screen going, bullshit.
Yeah, I've been like, bullshit, shut up, there's no way.
Yeah, there's no way. But here we are in real life.
Sneakerheads, beware.
That's funny, especially if you're making custom ones.
Well, because a lot of them they make very limited runs of. It's like a whole thing that people are into.
I would hope that someone that could afford a limited shoe wouldn't be out killing people. But hey, who knows?
Well, the people spend their money in all sorts of ways. This guy's fucking high on cocaine.
That's
and
true.
Stealing lots of money. So
that's very true. So obviously to police, it was now evident that the 1 pair of shoes of its size and kind belonged to a killer in the state of California, which is just amazing.
Actually insane, yeah.
So when it was discovered that the ballistics and shoe print evidence from Los Angeles also matched the crime scene of the Pan murders, San Francisco's then mayor, Dianne Feinstein, went out and told the press. She went out there and said, this particular detail and what this was this kind of gun, and it's connected from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and this pissed off all the detectives.
Right, because that's like an important detail, and now he's going to take the shoes off.
Ramirez, who was following the news,
of course,
he then took those shoes and he threw them off the Golden Gate Bridge the very night he learned of that they had that evidence. Fucking morons. So he remained in that.
No one's ever thinking.
Well, the police were, but the mayor wanted the publicity of it.
Right, or like mistakenly was like, this'll help. Everyone should know this, and then we'll catch him right away.
Right? Except if you don't have the shoes anymore. So Ramirez remained in that area for a few more days before he returned to Los Angeles. On August 24th, 1985, Ramirez traveled 76 miles south of Los Angeles in a stolen orange Toyota to the city of Mission Vallejo. That night, he arrived at the home of 45-year-old James Romero Jr., who had just returned from a family vacation in Mexico. Romero's son, 13-year-old James Romero III, happened to be awake. So while his family was asleep, James III went outside the house to retrieve a pillow that he had left in the family's truck, but it was locked. And when he was outside, he heard some rustling noises. So he assumed it was an animal, and he went to investigate, but he didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. He then went back inside and began working on something like a little mini bike that he had before he heard footsteps outside again. So, thinking that there was like a prowler, and obviously there is, he went to his bedroom window before he went and then woke up his parents, and they saw someone fleeing the scene. Now, James Jr. ran outside and noted the color, make, and style of the car and got a partial license plate number.
Wow.
He then contacted the police, believing that his son had successfully chased away a thief. Not realizing.
Little did he know.
Right? Not
that
realizing.
His son saved all of their lives, probably.
All of them. How fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I would have been shaken for like years, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Especially as a 13-year-old, that'd have fucked me up.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
So with his attack on the Romero residence aborted, Ramirez then went and broke into the home of 30-year-old Bill Carnes and his fiancée, 29-year-old Inez Erickson, through their back door. Ramirez entered the couple's bedroom and awakened Bill when he cocked the hammer of his .25 caliber handgun. He shot Carnes 3 times in the head before turning his attention to Inez. And Joyous, this is going to piss you off so much. Ramirez then identified himself as the Nightstalker and forced her to swear that she loved Satan as he beat her with his fists and bound her with neckties from their closet. So this fucker named himself.
He named himself. What a fucker.
Yeah, I know you hate that, so I had to.
I do. I hate that. Fuck you and your fucking nickname. Eat shit.
It's so funny. I'm sorry. After stealing what he could find, Ramirez dragged Inez to another room before raping her. He then demanded cash and jewelry and made her swear on Satan that there was no more. Before leaving the home, he told Inez to, quote, tell them the Nightstalker was here, unquote.
Oh.
Inez then untied herself and went to the neighbor's house for help. Surgeons removed 2 of the 3 bullets from Bill's head, and he survived his injuries.
What the fuck?
Ooh, crazy. This guy's a
Wow.
This guy's a terrible shot.
He really is.
On the night of June 27th, 1985, 32-year-old Patty Elaine Higgins was murdered in her Arcadia home. Now, the crime was not discovered for 5 days until July 2nd, when she failed to show up to work. Which makes me, I think about the fact that, I live alone now. And I'm like, if I died, it would take a few days before people realized I was gone. Because
if there wasn't like a work event.
I don't know that my coworkers would call anybody. It's today's world of people just leaving their jobs and just not coming in anymore. I don't know that people would just call the police and be like, hey, we need a wellness check.
I feel like they would contact your boss at least, who would be like, have your emergency contact, right?
Maybe, but I don't know that they would. It's tough to say. I guess it would depend on what was happening the last day I worked. Because if I seemed like I was really aggravated or stressed, maybe they'd just be like, maybe just quit. And maybe they wouldn't call anybody.
Damn.
That's the only reason.
It's really unfortunate that it's really like that.
Yeah, and that's the only reason I think that this woman went 5 days without being discovered. It had to have been a situation similar.
Yeah. Well, at least if it was a Monday.
Yeah, well, it's just
someone would be calling the police.
Right, because we record on Mondays, for those who don't know. You guys would recognize it. And there's also, I have a get-together Thursdays, so it depends on the day it happened, I guess. Which is why family members have a copy of my keys, just in case.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Patty's attacker had sodomized her, strangled her, and slashed her throat.
Ugh.
Ramirez would eventually be charged with the murder, and he would be charged with burglary in relations to Patty's death. However, these charges were dropped due to lack of concrete evidence linking Patty to the other murders.
What?
Yeah, so she's not an official victim of the Nightstalker.
Whoa.
Yeah, she's listed because it was probably him, but they couldn't fully prove it. So based on a statement Ramirez made to an investigator later, he is also a suspect in the San Francisco double murder of 58-year-old Christina and 70-year-old Mary Caldwell. The 2 sisters were found stabbed to death in their Telegraph Hill apartment on February 20th, 1985. Later, while incarcerated, Ramirez openly bragged to a prison officer and other inmates about having killed more than 20 people.
Oh, God. I mean, how many have we talked about so far? It seems like so many.
We're definitely in the teens at this point, yes. So Inez Erickson, one of the woman who survived after her fiancé was shot in the head 3 times, she gave a detailed description of her assailant to investigators, and police were able to obtain a cast of Ramirez's footprint from the Romero house. Now, keep in mind, this is after he threw away the shoes.
Mm-hmm, so it's a new footprint.
Correct. So the stolen Toyota that he used was found abandoned on August 28th in Koreatown, Los Angeles, and police obtained a single fingerprint from the rear view mirror, despite Ramirez's careful efforts to wipe the car clean of any prints.
Missed one.
The print was positively identified as belonging to Ramirez, who was described by police at the time as a 25-year-old drifter from Texas with a long rap sheet that included many arrests for traffic and illegal drug violations. That's how they described him.
Wow.
So here's a second moment of, if I saw this in a movie, I wouldn't have fucking believed it.
Wow.
The police, the system that they used to identify Ramirez's fingerprint, had only just recently been installed.
Wow.
And the system only contained the fingerprints of criminals that were born after January 1st, 1960, which was 2 months before Ramirez was born.
Wow.
He almost wasn't in their system.
Wow.
What the fuck?
That's
Yeah.
just, oh my God, talk about that timing.
Yeah, it's like, I love that he didn't kill that one woman because he thought Jesus Christ was saving her.
Yeah.
In
That
his
was incredible.
in his thought process, at this point, Jesus Christ is trying to catch him.
Well, for real, think of how many people he's shot in the literal head, face, and neck, and they did not die.
That's true too. Holy shit, I didn't even think of that.
He should probably stop praying to Satan because Satan's sabotaging him.
Satan's just like, yeah, whatever, buddy.
Satan's like, stop claiming me. You're bad at this.
Right? It's like, stop using my name, bitch.
Yeah, literally.
Keep my name out of your motherfucking mouth. Sorry. Had to do it. So police finally knew who he was. So on August 29th, 1985, law enforcement officials decided to release a mugshot of Ramirez from his 1984 arrest for auto theft to the media. At the police press conference, it was announced, quote, "We know who you are now, and soon everyone else will. There will be no place you can hide." So on August 30th, 1985, unaware that he had become the lead story in virtually every major newspaper and television program across California, Richard Ramirez took a bus from Los Angeles to Tucson, Arizona to visit his brother.
Whoa.
So by some bizarre coincidence, he's not even in the area now. But getting there and failing to meet up with his brother due to him not being home, like I don't know why he didn't bother to tell him he was coming, Ramirez returned to Los Angeles early on the morning of August 31st. He got off the bus and walked past police officers who were staking out the bus station. They were hoping that they would catch the killer attempting to flee, get out of Los Angeles. So they were only paying attention to the outbound buses.
Oh, no.
No.
Because they were not expecting someone, they weren't looking at anyone returning to the area. They didn't see him.
Oh, that
Crazy.
is absolute bullshit.
Wow, that is like some real, like, inattentional blindness right there. Like, you're just really only looking for one thing.
It's crazy. Fucking nuts. So Ramirez then walked into a convenience store in East Los Angeles. After noticing a group of elderly Hispanic women fearfully identifying him as El Matador, Ramirez saw his face on the front page of the newspaper with a headline calling him the Night Invader, and he fled the store in a panic. Now, this is another one. This is the final moment where, again, if I saw this in a movie, I would call bullshit.
Wow.
After running across the Santa Ana freeway, he attempted to carjack an unlocked Ford Mustang, but was pulled out of the vehicle by two angry residents named Faustino Pinon and Jose Burgon. Ramirez then ran across the street and attempted to take the car keys from a woman named Angelina De La Torre.
He's desperate.
Her husband Manuel, witnessing the attempt, came up and struck Ramirez over the head with a fence post.
Let's go.
Nice.
A group of over 10 residents formed a mob and chased Ramirez down Hubbard Street into Boyle Heights. They soon restrained him and relentlessly beat him.
Let's go.
At 8 a.m., police were called over a disturbance in the area but didn't receive any other details, so they're on their way. When police arrived on Hubbard Street, they took the severely beaten Richard Ramirez into custody.
No questions asked. I will not be asking the neighborhood what happened.
This is the best serial killer capture in history, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's legendary.
Fucking amazing. And there is a documentary out there about this where they actually show some like footage, like that when the police helicopter, like that neighborhood, they were fucking ready to kill the guy.
Love that.
So jury selection for Ramirez's trial began on July 22nd, 1988. So he was held for roughly 3 years. At his first court appearance, he raised a hand with a pentagram drawn on it and yelled, "Hail Satan."
Of course he did.
Great move, dude.
On August 3rd, 1988, the Los Angeles Times reported that some jail employees overheard Ramirez planning to shoot the prosecutor with a gun, which he intended to have smuggled into the courtroom. Consequently, a metal detector was installed outside, and intensive searches were conducted on people entering the court. On August 14th, the trial was interrupted because one of the jurors, Phyllis Singletary, did not arrive at the courtroom. Later that day, she was found shot to death in her apartment.
Holy shit.
The jury was terrified, wondering if Ramirez had somehow directed this event from inside his prison cell. However, it was ultimately determined that Ramirez was not responsible for Phyllis's death, as she was shot and killed by her boyfriend, who later committed suicide.
What the fuck?
Yep.
Wow.
What a bizarre
twist.
coincidence. The alternate juror who replaced Phyllis was actually too frightened to return to her home. So the entire time that she was on the jury, she did not go back to her home.
Oh my God. That's so scary.
Terrifying. Especially because you got this asshole hailing Satan in the courtroom.
Right.
On September 20th, 1989, Ramirez was convicted on all 43 charges that were levied against him.
Woof.
These were 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. During the penalty phase of the trial on November 7th, 1989, he was sentenced to death in California's gas chamber. He stated to reporters after the death sentence, quote, "Big deal. Death was always part of the territory. See you in Disneyland," unquote.
Oh my God, what a sick fuck.
I love the long stretch of silence for a moment.
Yeah, just like
I gotta figure out how to react.
How to process
like,
it.
What?
Guy's nuts. He's nuts. So Ramirez's trial cost $1.8 million, which at the time made it the most expensive murder trial in California's history, until it was surpassed by the O.J. Simpson case in 1994.
Makes sense.
While awaiting trial, Ramirez reportedly met actor Sean Penn. Now,
What?
Sean Penn was in jail at this time. Now, keep in mind, around this time, Sean Penn may or may not have been married to Madonna. I don't remember the years that they were married. But Sean Penn was in jail for 33 days in 1987 for reckless driving, and he also assaulted an extra on the set of the movie Colors.
What the fuck?
Kidding.
Asshole.
Yeah, he was an asshole back in the day. And I don't know how much better he is now, but that's a whole other thing. Now, Sean Penn claimed he received a letter from Ramirez that was a fellow inmate, where he supposedly responded to Ramirez telling him that he had no sympathy for him and he hoped he died in the gas chamber. So there's that.
Go off, King.
Beginning in 1985, Doreen Leoy wrote Ramirez nearly 75 letters during his incarceration.
Oh, not one of these fucking bitches.
In 1988, he proposed to Doreen, and
Oh my God, what a sick situation.
And on October 3rd, 1996, they were married in California's San Quentin State Prison.
Oh my God.
For many years before Ramirez's eventual death, Doreen stated that she would commit suicide when Ramirez was executed.
Is she still alive?
However, by 2013, Ramirez and Doreen must have divorced because he, at 53 years old, was engaged to a 23-year-old writer.
Ew.
Yeah.
These bitches are sick fucks.
Yep. Over the decades, Ramirez's appeals ended unsuccessfully when the California Supreme Courts upheld his convictions and death sentence.
What was he even going to try to appeal? He confessed to all of it.
I don't know. Probably just to get off death row would be my guess.
Yeah, I guess. Be like, I don't know if California still has the death penalty, but maybe if he was like, hey, maybe not.
I don't remember because it's been overturned so many times. That's what saved Charles Manson and his family members. So that one's a tough say. But Ramirez wouldn't die in the gas chamber because he died of complications secondary to B-cell lymphoma at Marin General Hospital in Green Bay, California on June 7th, 2013.
Oh, so he suffered. Good.
He was also affected by chronic substance abuse and chronic hepatitis C viral infection. Now, interestingly, no one claimed his body, and Richard Ramirez was cremated. So,
wow.
So while he's in hell burning, he's also burning up here as we get rid of his body.
Love that. And that his apparent fiance didn't even pick up the body?
Yeah, apparently not. This 23-year-old writer probably didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is the story of Richard Ramirez, a.k.a. the Nightstalker.
Dude, that was fucking awful.
Yeah, that's what these famous ones generally are.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're not famous because they're chill. That's for sure.
No, they're not. They're not relaxed at all.
No. Yeah, that was... And it does make sense. Like, that does contribute to the sense of satanic panic and, like, this guy claiming that he's, like, worshiping Satan. When it's like, as far as I understand, most people who, like, quote-unquote, worship Satan are, like, just being edgy anti-Christian. They're like, haha, wouldn't it be so funny if we, like, worshipped Satan? Wouldn't that really stick it to him?
Right. And I remember being 14 years old and having my copy of the Satanic Bible. And it was because I thought it was cool and anti-authority. Yeah, it was stupid.
Exactly. Like, it's like, not shit like this.
You grow up.
Yeah, you're supposed to grow up. But I guess when you're on that much coke, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. Right. And when you have a traumatic brain injury, multiple from when you were 6 years old.
And you're
not going to really have a grasp on any sort of reality. And
you watched your cousin shoot his wife in the face, and your sister's husband is taking you out looking in people's windows. I mean, you know, he's fucked from go.
From the start.
So yeah, thank you everybody for joining us for yet another For Joyous Information. As you can see, this poor young lady is traumatized again.
Once again, always. Thanks for the trauma.
I know. I feel like I've aged you 10 years in the last 2 years.
You have.
She keeps coming back, though.
39 looks great on me.
Right?
That's fine.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Once again, I am Janice Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.